Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's video dives into the true history of Halloween, how it all started and how those ancient traditions evolved into the Halloween we know today.
That's right. We'll explore some fascinating history. And after the story, we'll talk through the difficult words and their meanings to help you learn more.
So get ready for part 1 of this Halloween story. Let's listen in.
Long ago, over 2,000 years back, the Celts, people living mostly in what is now Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France, marked the beginning of their new year not in January, but on November 1st. This date wasn't just any ordinary day. It symbolized the end of the warm, light days of summer and the start of the cold, dark winter, a season often associated with hardship and death. On the evening of October 31st, the Celts would gather for an ancient festival they called Samhain. Samhain was more than just a New Year's Eve celebration. The Celts believed that on this night, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead was blurred, allowing spirits to roam the earth. This idea might seem eerie to us today, but for the Celts, it was a deeply spiritual experience. They thought that the spirit's presence could both protect and cause trouble. To honor these spirits, ward off the unwelcome ones, and ask for protection during winter, the Druids, the Celtic priests, built massive bonfires. Families extinguished their home fires and then relit them with flames from the sacred bonfire, believing it would protect their households through the winter dot. During the Samhain celebrations, the Celts also wore costumes, typically made of animal heads and skins, hoping to blend in with the roaming spirits. They would gather around the fire, attempt to tell fortunes, and make offerings by burning crops and animals as sacrifices to their deities.
Wow, Lily, that was an interesting piece of history. Halloween's roots go way back, and I can see where some of our modern traditions come from. But hey, let's help everyone with some of those tougher words. We've got a few that might need breaking down, right?
Absolutely. Let's start with Celts, a word that might sound simple but has a lot of history. The Celts were the ancient people of Ireland, the UK, and parts of Northern Europe. They had their own languages, customs, and beliefs, which made them pretty unique.
So the Celts were like the cultural ancestors of people in those regions today. Makes sense. Next up, there's symbolized. What does it mean in this context?
Good one. Symbolized means to represent or stand for something. The Celts used November 1st to mark or represent the shift from summer to winter, making it symbolic of change and new beginnings.
I like that. Something representing more than just itself. And speaking of symbolic, what about hardship? I noticed it was used when describing winter.
Right. Hardship means a time of difficulty or suffering. Winter brought the hardship of cold weather, food shortages, and other struggles.
That makes it clear. Now, I heard the term Samhain. It sounds unique and old-fashioned. What's behind that word?
Good question, Matt. Samhain, pronounced Samhain, was the festival the Celts held on October 31st, celebrating their new year. It was a spiritual time, with rituals meant to welcome the winter and connect with the spirit world.
Got it. I also heard something about the boundary between worlds being blurred. Does that mean what I think it does?
Pretty much. When something is blurred, it's unclear or hard to distinguish. The Celts believed that on Samhain, the line between the living and the dead became unclear, allowing spirits to cross over.
Fascinating. And they did certain things to ward off these spirits, right?
Yes, exactly. To ward off means to protect against something or keep it away. The Celts used fire and costumes to protect themselves from harmful spirits.
Which brings us to druid. I've heard it before, but what exactly is a druid?
Druids were Celtic priests or spiritual leaders. They were highly respected and led ceremonies, including the Samhain festival, because they were thought to have special powers.
Gotcha. Now, there was another word, extinguished. Families extinguished their home fires. What does that mean?
To extinguish means to put out a fire. The Celts would put out their own fires at home, then relight them from the big sacred bonfire at the festival for protection.
Speaking of sacred, that's a strong word. Can you explain it?
Of course. Sacred means something considered holy or very special, often tied to religious beliefs. The bonfire was sacred, so it was thought to have protective powers.
Makes sense. And then we heard costumes. Is that like our Halloween costumes?
Kind of. Costumes here refers to clothes made from animal heads and skins. The Celts wore them to blend in with spirits so they wouldn't be recognized.
I see. And lastly, what about sacrifices? It's not a word we use every day.
True. A sacrifice means giving up something valuable to honor a higher power. The Celts would offer crops and animals to ask for blessings and protection for the winter.
Wow, so much history packed into those words. Thanks, Lily. I'm excited to see what's in the next part of the story.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Let's listen to the next part of this intriguing Halloween tale. There's more to uncover.
By 43 AD, as the Romans expanded their empire, they took over most of the Celtic lands. Over the next 400 years, the Romans combined two of their own festivals with Samhain. One was Feralia, a day in late October to honor the dead. The second was a celebration for Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. Pomona's symbol was the apple, which is believed to be the origin of the modern-day Halloween tradition of bobbing for apples. By the 8th century, as Christianity spread, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as All Saints' Day, a day to honor all saints and martyrs. October 31st became known as All Hallows' Eve, eventually evolving into what we now call Halloween. Over time, Halloween transformed from a somber night of spirit watching to a festive holiday filled with costumes, candy, and parties. And that's how a festival rooted in ancient Celtic traditions evolved through centuries of cultural influences, from Romans to early Christians, into the Halloween we know today. It's amazing how what started as a night of warding off spirits with bonfires and costumes has become a celebration marked by carving pumpkins, dressing up, and indulging in sweet treats.
Hey, Lily, that was another fascinating glimpse into Halloween's journey. I love how it evolved over the centuries. Let's go through some of those tricky words to make it easier for our listeners. How about starting with empire?
Good choice, Matt. An empire is a large group of countries or regions ruled by a single authority, often an emperor. In this story, the Romans expanded their empire, taking over Celtic lands.
Got it. And we heard designated when Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as All Saints' Day. What does that mean?
Designated means to officially choose or assign something for a specific purpose. The Pope designated that day specifically for honoring saints and martyrs.
Makes sense. And then there was honor. I know it's a common word, but how is it used here?
Honor, in this context, means to show deep respect or admiration. The Romans and early Christians held festivals to honor the dead and saints, paying them respect.
Thanks, Lily. What about symbol? Pomona's symbol was the apple. How would you explain that?
Good one. A symbol is something that represents or stands for something else, often an idea. Here, the apple was used to represent Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit and trees.
Ah, I see. And then we had Christianity spreading. Can you clarify that one?
Of course. Christianity is the religion based on the teachings of Jesus Christ. When it spread through Europe, it influenced local traditions like Samhain, eventually blending into what we know as Halloween.
Got it. Now, martyrs. We heard that All Saints' Day honors saints and martyrs. What exactly is a martyr?
A martyr is someone who suffers or dies for their beliefs or faith. Early Christians often honored these individuals, remembering their sacrifice on special days, like All Saints' Day.
Ah, interesting. And what about evolving? The story mentioned Halloween evolving over time.
Evolving means changing or developing gradually. Halloween evolved from a Celtic festival into the fun holiday we celebrate today, transforming little by little.
Perfect. Speaking of changes, festive came up when describing modern Halloween. What does it mean here?
Festive means full of celebration or excitement. Today's Halloween is festive, with costumes, candy, and parties, unlike the more serious rituals of ancient times.
And influences. Halloween was shaped by cultural influences. What's an influence in this context?
An influence is something that affects or changes something else. Cultural influences like Roman and Christian traditions reshaped Halloween into what we recognize today.
That makes it clear. Thanks, Lily. So many interesting words this time. And listeners, let us know in the comments if you learned something new, or if you've got thoughts about Halloween's history.
Yes, and don't forget to subscribe. Stay with us for fast, knowledgeable English learning. This is the best way to learn English.